You know that old trope where someone's home is their safe haven? The place where they can relax and feel totally comfortable being themselves? Yeah, well, this house isn't a safe haven for anyone. Not anymore. Welcome to our channel. And today, we're going to tell you about the most haunted house in the world. Let's get into it. The name of this house doesn't really matter because there are so many places around the world with the exact same haunting. So we'll just call her the house. It's located in a residential neighborhood of Boston, Massachusetts. So if you ever find yourself wandering around Beacon Hill looking for a new house, be careful which one you choose. The house was constructed sometime during the late 18th century, but no one knows who actually built it or why. Records indicate that the first person to reside there was a widow named Rebecca. After her, the house had dozens of different owners, most of whom only stayed for a few years before selling it to someone else. Presumably because they couldn't take living there anymore. The house remained empty for decades until two businessmen bought it and divided it up into multiple apartments. Apparently they were trying to make a profit. And since the house was already abandoned and potentially haunted, they didn't have much to lose by doing whatever they wanted with it. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. In the early 1900s, there were 4 known residents of the house: Mrs. Palmer in apartment 3, Mr. Higgins in apartment 4, Miss Dane in apartment 5, and a Mrs. Hathaway in apartment 6. These people lived there between 1910 and 1912, and after that, the house once again became vacant and remained that way for over 30 years. It wasn't until 1946 when the next resident moved in. This time the residents were a couple, Helen and Walter. They were happy to have found such a large and cheap place to live. But they soon realized that the building's cheap rent came with an unexpected bonus. Walter would often hear scratching sounds in the walls and occasionally see shadows moving about in his peripheral vision. Occasionally, he would even hear whispers coming from the vents. Helen, on the other hand, claimed she never heard anything out of the ordinary and dismissed her husband's claims as auditory hallucinations brought on by his tinnitus. But not long after they moved in, things started to go wrong. First, Helen began experiencing strange events herself. For example, objects would suddenly fall off shelves and break, and books would randomly fly off of her husband's desk. Then strange footsteps began echoing through the house, even though the couple was always the only ones inside. Sometimes the sound would come from above them, even though no one lived in the attic. Other times, it would seem like someone was walking directly below their apartment. They also started hearing regular scratching sounds coming from the walls and doors. They'd also frequently hear chains dragging metal moans and screams. Of course, the couple thought these sounds were caused by the building's age, and the fact that it was made of wood. That was until the day Helen's sister came to visit. While the sister was staying over, the family heard the same scratching noises from within the wall. When they investigated, they found that the noise was coming from behind the wallpaper. And when they tore down the wallpaper, they found that someone had been scratching away at the plaster. However, no one could explain how or why this happened because no one was ever caught in the act. To add to this, there were also several areas of the house where the paint and wallpaper would seemingly peel away from the walls on their own, revealing newly scratched plaster underneath. The couple and Helen's sister decided to leave the house immediately after that. Over the next few years, the house changed hands several times. One of its owners even tried turning it into a funeral home. But that plan fell through because the local zoning commission rejected the idea. The house continued to sit empty until 1977, when it was purchased by a young couple, George and Kathy. When they moved in, strange things started happening right away. At first, it was just small things like lights flickering, mirrors falling off the walls, and heavy footsteps echoing through the house. But as time went on, things got worse. Kathy started experiencing strange visions while she was asleep. In them, she would see a woman wearing a nightgown frantically running through the halls, as if trying to escape something. Then she would turn and look directly at Kathy before vanishing. Then one day, Kathy saw something even more disturbing. She noticed the distinct shape of a child standing in the corner of her eye. When she turned to face it, however, she saw nothing. Her husband also began experiencing strange phenomena, like seeing figures standing at the foot of his bed, staring at him. He also started hearing chains dragging moans. One night he woke up in the middle of the night to what sounded like a blood-curdling scream coming from the floor above him. Because of all these strange happenings, the couple put their house up for sale. But when potential buyers toured the home, they experienced weird stuff too. Most of them chalked it up to an overactive imagination, but some actually walked out in the middle of the tour, refusing to buy the house. Eventually, though, a family bought the house and moved right in. We don't know what drove them to buy it, considering all the stories, but hey, maybe they're a fan of haunted houses. As you might expect, things didn't end well for them either. Their daughter was playing in her room when she suddenly stopped. She told her parents that she had seen the ghost of a little girl wearing a Victorian nightgown standing in the corner of the room. From then on, whenever the little girl's ghost appeared, the house's energy would noticeably shift. Also, the girl was never alone. Her ghostly dog would appear alongside her, along with a man in a wheelchair. These apparitions weren't aggressive or malicious. They were simply sad and lonely. They occasionally interacted with the family, though, like when the father was reading the newspaper and the apparition of the little girl came up to him and placed her hand on his arm. Then she disappeared after giving him a wink. Not long after that, the family decided to sell the home. Since then, the house has changed hands several times, but the hauntings have remained constant. People have reported seeing the ghosts of the little girl and her dog, as well as hearing chains dragging moans and screams in the middle of the night. Some of the newer owners claim that the home's energy is actually quite pleasant and peaceful, despite the hauntings. We guess if you get used to it, anything's possible. Unfortunately, these stories are common in homes built before the 1950s. Many people claim that you can't really feel at ease in a house that old. There's always that nagging feeling that you're being watched or judged. Now, this house is actually still standing. And while we won't tell you exactly where it is, we will tell you that you can easily find it. If you have the nerve to do so, just look up the history of any old house in Beacon Hill, and you're bound to find this one's story. You can't miss it. Do you think you could live in a haunted house? Or do you run screaming in the opposite direction? Let us know your thoughts on the matter in the comments below. And before you go, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.